Good morning, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving to those of you in the US. Happy Thanksgiving. Good morning. It's great to see you. There's so many people on. I'm so surprised. I thought maybe it would be just an empty room today and I would record and you would watch later. Happy Thanksgiving. I'm fresh out of the shower. I'm still wet and I'm drinking wine early. It is a holiday, so don't judge. But I haven't started yet. I will have my first sip with you. But what a day. It's such a busy day. It's wonderful when we have these holidays. It's a real bleak one for us here today. It's very gray and grim. And weirdly, the treadmill arrived on the front step. I'm guessing it arrived today and not yesterday, or maybe yesterday, and I just didn't notice something bigger than a refrigerator on the front step, but it's been getting soaked for the last 24 hours. So I hope that's okay. Obviously, the point of having it is to do better with weight and stuff. So it's kind of ironic that it arrives on the biggest eating holiday of the year. Let's see who's here. Good morning, Anita. Good day to everybody. Okay, understood. Everybody's busy. Thanks for checking in, Anita. Crystal, see you next time. Yep. And hello to Crystal. I know the Canadians had their Thanksgiving last month. I wish I was more on top of that at the time. Good morning, Christine. Upstate New York, it is gloomy, but let's make it great. I have a great episode for you today. Good morning. Christine and Penny are chatting. I thought Dana said we were up. I'll go look. Didn't see. Oh, yeah, the bingo cards are up. The bingo cards, I put them up late last night. Actually, they were up during the day, and I just forgot to post that they were up. Ribbon candy hooking. They took longer than I thought, but good reminder that the bingo cards to play bingo on this coming cocktail night, Friday, it will be Molly Naitobi 50 States Bingo. And this time there are 12 cards. So I'm not going to talk too much about odds and gambling because I'll sound like a dirtbag that knows too much about it, and I don't. But I just know that there are way more cards than there were last time. So it should be even more competitive. We had, I think, 4 winners last time. There should be fewer winners this time. So it should be exciting, nail-biting excitement. But the bingo cards, I think, are so beautiful because it's a whole card of Molly Naitobi rugs of the states. And we'll talk about her inspiration for each of the states at bingo night on Friday, tomorrow. Let me see who else is here, and then I'll come back to business, and then we'll start our episode. Good morning, Jess. Good morning, Amber. Oh, good morning, Teresa. Southwest Ohio, it's good to be together. Good morning, April and Beverly. Happy Thanksgiving. Good morning, Catherine. It was great seeing you yesterday. Good morning, Julie. Good morning, Christine M. If we can't keep up. Christine, I will know which bingo card won. If you aren't on tomorrow or something happens, I will know which one won, and I will know who bought that one. Because we record who we're sending it to. So don't worry about that. If you have the winning card, I will let you know. Even if you have to bow out of playing or you're not able to log on tomorrow and play live, don't worry about it. I will certainly let you know. So I want to say, first of all, we did our Zoom yesterday, and I recorded it and put it up this morning. That was another thing I was slow with. But I have to say, it is so nice to see everybody's faces and to sit and chat. I think it went really well. I'm going to be a lot less nervous about it in future days. We're going to do this every Wednesday through the winter, probably not this week, but we'll see. I'm thinking about doing another Zoom, just logging on for an hour on like a Sunday evening for people who work and aren't able to do Wednesday, just to sit and be together. Because, there's a lot of people who have a lot of stuff going on, and there's a lot of people who have not enough stuff going on. And it's nice to sit companionably. We were all either chatting or looking down and working and listening, but it's just a nice way to be together during a crazy time. And even if it weren't for this crazy time, we are really scattered in many countries at this point. So it was super nice to be together. I loved hearing everybody chatting. I loved hearing voices while I was working on my Thanksgiving thing. And we will certainly do it again. And I will Zoom them. It's no theme. We're just chatting and go from subject to subject, but it is very companionable and nice. And I really, really enjoyed it. Hello, Linda. Another thing, I wanted to tell you a couple of things before I get into the day. Hold on, first things first. Yes, the stress of the holidays, just a little bit of stress, kids and noise and stuff. A treadmill arriving in the rain. I just want to tell you, unrelated to me, but related to life. I was looking at glasses this morning because I can never find my reading glasses. And I got a notice, Buttons has to go outside. I got a notice from Peepers because people are constantly saying, where are you getting your glasses from? Because they're not from like the pharmacy. They're not from CVS. Hey, Betty, happy Thanksgiving. Thank you. Good morning, Jennifer. Thank you. Blessings back. I'm so happy that we're here together for Thanksgiving. Great Norman Rockwell episode. But if you are ever in search of glasses, I just want to let you know, and I am not being endorsed by Peepers. They are not giving me a cent. Nothing is going on with me and Peepers. That didn't sound quite right, but I get my glasses from them, and they're having a huge sale today. So I logged on this morning, and all reading glasses are $10 each. And if you buy 2 pairs, it's free shipping. So I just bought like 4 pairs because they're usually between 25 and 27 each, plus like 7 or 8 for shipping. So this morning on peepers.com, you'll find it. You'll see the $10 thing. Almost all of their glasses in every color and strength are available for $10 each. And if you spend $20, meaning you buy just 2 pairs, it's free shipping. So it's a good time to do that if you're thinking about it. Why spend 27 tomorrow if you can spend 20 on 2 pairs with free shipping today? Also, I just wanted to say hello, Liz. Happy Thanksgiving to you too. It's there's no sound, there's no smells of cooking here. I've been working on building those dye kits. I wanted to make sure that they were all going out immediately, especially for people in Canada. There's only 1 spot left in the challah dyeing class. 1 spot, because I did 10 max just to have the most sort of control on it. But we're going over my sister's today. My sister who works at Yale, she's the art restorer. So we'll be over there playing some games, and my mom will be over there too. And since we got the corona test and we're negative, then she can relax and everybody can relax and feel safe and happy. And the kids can hug and cuddle and snuggle. And that's really going to be important today. But nice quiet day. And we're just bringing over the Pims, which is an English type of booze that you put like cucumbers and fruits and things like that in. So we're a big family of cocktailers, and I'm sure there'll be others there, but the Pims is going to be a big staple for our celebration today, and a lot of mystery rummy games, I think. So hello, Gabrielle. Hello, not super late at all. We're probably going to run way over today, so don't even think about it. Haven't even started, just talking crazy. So I was talking about Peepers having that great sale. If you're in the market for glasses, to do it now, because it's a bummer to spend twice as much when you don't need to. I'm not doing a Black Friday sale, but I am doing, because Black Friday is usually for stores, I am doing at Ribbon Candy Hooking a Cyber Monday sale, which is like the online stuff. And what did we do? Like 20% off all patterns? For the cyber, yeah, 20% off all patterns. So couldn't do it with kits and stuff because the wool cost me so much, and the kits are right there at the edge of making any profit to begin with. But I did 20% off all patterns on Monday. So check that out if you're looking for holiday patterns or patterns for next year. Bingo cards ordered. Excellent. Yep. Hello. Good morning. Is it more? It's not Marie. It's Maureen. Help me again. I get so confused. But I'm saying hello and happy Thanksgiving just the same. Yeah, don't forget your bingo cards for tomorrow night. That is going to be super fun. So I got going on Norman Rockwell. I was started to look at all of his pictures because many of them have hooked rugs. And probably sometime in the future, I'm going to take you through. I have a large collection of old magazines, this kind of thing, Better Homes and Gardens, from the 1940s, 1950s, and I earmark I dog-ear the pages that have, I'll just show you one for an example, hooked rugs, because almost every page has hooked rugs, right here, and that's the only one on that page. Maybe the bottom has one there too, but it's remarkable. Almost every picture in these old magazines has a hooked rug in it, and you know who that is. That's Pearl McGowan, right? That's her incredible reach, creating such an empire out of this style of hooked rug. But Norman Rockwell did not miss the boat on the hooked rugs. It was so much a part of American culture, probably Canadian culture too. But American culture, people hooking rugs or buying hooked rugs, making rugs. We know George Wells sold rugs, finished rugs to people who weren't crafters. They were very wealthy people. But the hooked rug was a staple in the mid-century home. And certainly Norman Rockwell, being like the artist of the people in the 20th century, who will depict American life like at its sweetest and purest and best, will include a lot of hooked rugs in his work. So I went through a lot of my books on Norman Rockwell, and I found some examples of hooked rugs in his paintings. There's quite a few, and you'll probably find more if you spend more time. I've been a little bit busy, but always time for Norman Rockwell. So it got me kind of going, because this is going to be a partly about rug cooking episode, but also a Norman Rockwell episode. episode because he is, I just feel like for the holidays, quintessential person to mention. He documented American history and American life if you don't know his art, which it's hard to imagine anybody doesn't know his art, but he was an illustrator with like almost a photo realism quality to his paintings. Huge scale paintings, beautiful, comical, sad, poignant. He was really, if you remember the episode when we talked about Wallace nutting and how he really manufactured the idea of early America or colonial America, which seems to be everything from 1620 in the first boat of Pilgrim's Landing to the Revolutionary War. So we always say, Wallace nutting documented that by having hooked rugs and braided rugs in so many of his 20th century depictions of life at that time. Well, Norman Rockwell does the same thing in the 20th century. And of course, he will include rugs too, because he will always use props. He was an artist who painted from life first. In his early years, he painted from models. And there's so much to be said about that because his relationship with his local models in the various places that he lived was always so strong and close. And they were like family members to him. And many of them are still alive, his models for his paintings. And if you ever get the chance to go to the Norman Rockwell Museum in Stockbridge, Massachusetts, in the Berkshires, it is the best experience. And many, if not all, of those guides that are there in the galleries are his former models, but they're quite old now. But very sharp and full of stories, unique stories that you can't hear anywhere else. Their own stories of their, some of their pictures are hanging there, and that's them as like a person in their 70s or 80s giving the tour. It's a great experience. But he documents life during that time, and he poses people, and he has a huge collection of props, and he's got many hooked rugs in his prop collection. And that's the reason that we'll see in the photos that I'm about to show you some of the same rugs again and again, variations of, because he didn't have endless rugs. He had a few rugs, but you could see that some of them were the same rug over and over. He later would work from photographs. So when that was more accessible and it made more sense to do that, he would take photographs and then paint from the photograph and then not have his studio full of live people, which could also be distracting. But I got on my kick this morning. You know how I said one of my great songs on my greatest hits album, if it ever comes out, is going to be the U2 song, I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For? Well, I wasn't able to sing that song this morning. So that's a good thing because I went down to the basement and I found the very thing I was looking for, which never happens. It's like an arsenic and Olace basement. I mean, it's a crazy basement, nothing ever to be found or seen again. And I went and my hand touched the very thing I was looking for, which is one of these little books that I made 15 or more years ago when I was a tour guide. I had a little book like this that I spiral bound with one of those punch machines. Good morning, James. With one of these punch machines from Melinda. Thank you. I'm so sorry, Melinda. It won't happen again. I'm very happy to see you. I used to spiral bind one of these books for each day. So I was ready with commentary on, hello, Linda, on what I was about to say that day. And I would have like a little, I had to be this way on tours because I had 50 people traveling and they were different people every week. It was hard to even remember faces at that point, but it would be like, the different stops we'd make that day. And my book would be full of information in case I was having a complete brain fart and I couldn't think of anything intelligent or interesting to say. And I found my Norman Rockwell book. It was the first book I touched. So let me tell you just a little bit about his life. You probably already know something about him because he was such a famous person and he remains a famous person. And so many artists who achieve this level of fame, I don't want to say like Thomas Kinkade in a bad way, but there are painters who are like the equivalent of the real estate novelists who do, so much of a formula and it becomes the same and it becomes kind of staid and a bit of a joke. I'm not saying Thomas Kinkade because his work is beautiful, but you know what I mean? That sort of cookie cutter style can get on one's nerves. Norman Rockwell, as prolific as he was, that sort of never happened with him. Each piece was so different and unique. And as he aged, I'll get to his bio in a second, but he worked for the Saturday Evening Post, and that's where we saw so many of his covers. That's where we saw his people and his props and his sort of take on American life. And as he got older, he sort of fell out with the Saturday Evening Post because he wanted to do work that was more meaningful for himself. We're getting into the 60s here and in his life, and he wanted to do a lot with sort of social justice. His personal hero was Abraham Lincoln, and he did a beautiful picture of a young Abe Lincoln standing up in court because, remember, Abe Lincoln was a lawyer, and he was defending a black man who had been accused of a murder with a slingshot outside a window on a night where there was no moon at all. And it was he in the true life case of Abe Lincoln, he got this man off. He was the son of one of Abe Lincoln's dear friends. And he got him off in court because it was absolutely outrageous that this person was being pinned with this crime. It was a successful court case for Abe Lincoln. It was a game changer. It was a huge part of his career. And this and many reasons, Abe Lincoln sort of defending minorities was something that attracted Norman Rockwell, because he felt the same way in the 60s, but he couldn't communicate that because the Saturday Evening Post, and really no magazine at that point, wanted racial issues being illustrated on the cover. It wasn't for anybody. It was supposed to be happy times and downplaying the stuff on the periphery that wasn't happy. So things changed for him later in his career. But hello, Kirsten, happy Thanksgiving. I'm glad you're here live. Hey, Heather, you made it. Got to chat with you later. Hey, Amy, happy Thanksgiving to you too. Oh, I'm glad we're having fun with the chats. There's always something to say. So let me just show you a couple of the Norman Rockwells, and then I'll tell you something about his life. These are two that I think he used the same prop for a hooked rug. One of them, and I'm going to tell you the story of the paintings as soon as I tell you a little bit about the man, but this is one of his called Tea Time. And this is one of his early post covers, and you can see this beautiful pearl gown style, right? It could be, for all we know, it could also be an heirloom or anything. And then in this one, which is called Twins, this one is sometimes referred to as the suitor's dilemma. You can see it's probably the same rug. He's done it in a different scale, but it's the same shape with the same dark ring. And it could be a completely different rug, but the chance of him having two rugs with the same color palette, because he usually painted exactly what he saw. He usually didn't do changing colors and things like that. He was really a perfectionist, but these two rugs to me look quite similar. So something about the man, just to frame his life, he was born in 1893, February 3rd, in New York City, and he is from an era that we refer to as the golden age of illustration. So this is like the 1880s. This is when he grew up, and the art that he would have been seeing, photography is not common at this point, so he would have been seeing art and illustration as a young person growing up. Winslow Homer, Howard Pyle, Frederick Remington, his like Western cowboy Indian type art. Those kinds of artists are the ones that Norman Rockwell would have been inspired by, because these are the artists that you're seeing on the covers of hardcover books and in magazines and illustrating books. So real popular culture icons. And he was born right in the middle of the golden age. So he's, as a boy, not very good at sports. See how good this tour guide stuff comes in handy like 15 years later? He wasn't good at sports, but he did have a great talent for drawing. And he found with drawing that he could amuse people, because he couldn't find a way to be popular by doing the typical man-boy things. He had to do something different, right? Because he's extremely awkward and gawky. Let me show you a picture of him as an older man. But I know you know what he looks like. And, oh no, this is him as a younger man. This is him at his studio in Arlington. And this is the kind of rug they would have down. This probably isn't a hooked rug, although it could have been. In these days, if they had these large rugs, they were calling them carpets. And if they had the small rugs, they were calling them rugs. So a carpet will be different than a rug. But this is the kind of thing. This was in a studio. Again, it's very hard to know if this is hooked or not. It could be a very large hooked rug. But he was a very gawky, awkward boy. And he didn't make friends in the normal channel. So he found that by drawing funny things that he could make friends that way. And that worked for him. So he did it. In his early teens, he decided he wanted to be an artist. And one of the things that really propelled him, and this is good to just keep in the back of your mind, I try to remember these things myself. His dad would sit with him every night. His dad's name was Jarvis, and he'll name one of his three boys Jarvis, Thomas, Jarvis, and Peter. But he would sit with his dad at the kitchen table every night, and his dad would read a little bit of Dickens to him. And he would draw the way that he pictured the characters to be, because Dickens characters, there's so many famous ones that pop into mind, but they're all real caricatures. And he was good at caricature instinctively. So drawing Dickens characters for him for years, kitchen table every night was great practice for him and a lot of fun. So early on, he's quite successful. At 14, he's earning money himself to pay for art classes. And at 15, he's a full-time art student, which is quite young. And at 19, he becomes the director of A Boy's Life, which is the magazine for Boy Scouts, right? He becomes the art director of that magazine as a teenager. He's 3 years away from being able to have a drink by our standards now. I'm sure he was drinking at 19 in those days. But that's an amazing accomplishment. and he printed a business card that said Norman P. Rockwell, artist, illustrator, letterer, cartoonist, sign painter, Christmas cards, calendars, magazines, still lifes, murals, portraits, layouts, design, etc. So he wanted to be able to do everything. And I think I told you this story before, so I won't tell it again in full, but during World War I, he really wanted to enlist as a soldier, and he was underweight, and he went home and he drank tons of fluids, and he ate tons of bananas, and he went back in the morning, and he was just over the weight by like a pound. But they didn't take him as a soldier. They took him as a military artist. And so as a younger man, he married when he was quite young, and he married a woman named Irene, who he had nothing in common with. She was a real socialite, and he certainly wasn't. And it wasn't that she was a bad person. It was that they had nothing in common. And soon after the wedding, they drifted apart, and they just weren't together at all. But it took 13 years to divorce officially. So there was just nothing going on with them, and they were very separate. But they weren't fighting. Nothing had happened. They just weren't a good match. So years later, after they divorce, he meets Mary, who will become the love of his life. She's 22 and he's 36. And she's a school teacher in California, but she's introduced to him at a party, I think in the back east, like a party like locally for him. And oh, that's okay, Joelle. You can check in later. Thank you so much. It's not your Thanksgiving, but thank you for wishing us a happy Thanksgiving. We'll see you soon. So he meets her, and she really is a kindred spirit because unlike Irene, she is passionate. She's an introvert. She loves to stay home. She loves nesting. She doesn't like the social scene. She doesn't need to be in New York. She doesn't need to go to parties. And she's really passionate about his work because he's a famous artist at a young age. He's already famous. So she becomes his wife. This sounds awful, but like his personal secretary, which he really needed, his true partner. She answers phones for him, handles his mail. She schedules all his models, finds models from the neighborhood. She finds all of his props. She reads to him out loud while he works just to keep things lively. And they have the three sons together, Jarvis, Peter, and Tommy. It's interesting to know that Jarvis, they're all alive. Jarvis is an assembly artist, and he often has his work shown at MoCA, which is a really important sort of new hip art gallery also in the Berkshires. Tommy became an author, and he wrote the very famous children's book, How to Eat Fried Worms, and a lot of others, but that is quite a famous children's book. And Peter, who became a sculptor in his own right. And if you ever do get to the Norman Rockwell Museum, you'll find that there's a lot of sculpture that's for children that's been picked just to stuff that appeals to children on the grounds of the Norman Rockwell Museum. And it's really beautiful. Has a very ethnic feel, very totem feel to it. Beautiful. So in 1938, the Rockwells purchase a summer home in Arlington, Vermont, and they make it a permanent home. They're away from the city because nobody enjoys city life. And they have such a happy, happy life there. Let me show you a couple of pictures, if I can find them. Yep, right here, from their time in Arlington, Vermont. So Mary and Norman and neighbors getting together all the time for parties. This is where he has his big prop store with his rugs and his everythings. Oh, I thought there was one more picture right after that. But they really build a life here. They have the three boys here. And this is really perfect for them. Oh, I'll have to show you later. I'll have to go in order here or we're going to get confused. But so they're in Arlington, Vermont, and the worst possible thing happens. There's a fire in his studio. And they lose everything. They lose everything in the studio. They lose all of his paintings that are not currently with a press, like being printed, because as soon as they would print them for a cover, they would send them back. So they essentially lost all of his paintings. And they lost all of the props that Mary had collected. And it's at this point, things are quite bad, that the family will move to Stockbridge, Massachusetts, which is the Berkshires. And the reason, I've read this a few times, it's not very definitive, but the reason they moved there was because there was like a mental health facility that was there where Mary was going on a fairly regular basis, and then Norman was too. And books will refer to some kind of mental health issue, and I'm guessing that it's depression, because there never seems to be anything else in their story. But one would be depressed when your whole life goes up in flames. And Mary, being his partner and having collected hundreds and hundreds of props over the years, it was a incomprehensible loss for them. Luckily, no people were hurt, but this was a big game changer. So at this point, they moved to the Berkshires. And they will be together until Mary dies at the age of 84. And he does, Norman, he does not like to be alone, and certainly Mary's the love of his life, but he takes a poetry class. He's quite old, because remember, he's 12 years older than she is, so he's in his 90s. But he meets and marries a woman who was in his poetry class, also quite old, called Molly Punderson, and she will be his companion just at the very, very, very end of his year of his life, because this is certainly a winter romance, if there was a romance. So he's known for a lot of things, but one of the few criticisms he ever got in his career was that and this is just a funny aside, was that he was not able to paint sultry women. He could never paint a sexy woman. Every woman he ever painted, no matter how sexy they actually were, came out looking like a tomboy. And this is just part of his style. And I just absolutely love, oh no, I need my phone. Can you see if my phone is upstairs? I have all my notes on my phone. Need it desperately. How did I not bring my phone down? I'm a beauty, huh? One sip of wine. I swear that was the first one. That's right. We can do, I totally need the phone. But in the meantime, we're going to look at a couple of these, because these are the ones that I found with a rug. And then if we have time, we're going to be over anyway. Oh, Carol, did you log on? I bet Carol's in there. Hi, Carol, if you're there. So we'll look at the twins again real quick until my phone comes down. And we'll look at, this one's really funny too. These all have stories, and I need my phone because I saved the stories. So again, this one is called Twins. This is 1929, I think. Also known as The Suitor's Dilemma. And this is one of his this is an early post cover, right? This is when they would sort of cut and paste the image onto a white background. And if you do get to the museum, or you end up getting a book of his work, you'll see that the post covers changed and evolved as time went on. Thank you so much. And they would be busy. It would be the whole cover. And then there was like the evolution of them typesetting like Saturday Evening Post above, because they didn't have the technology to sort of incorporate it into the cover. And then they did. So you see the whole evolution of printing in the Norman Rockwell covers, because he did so many covers for them. But this is an early one where it was just like a central vignette with the little hooked rug and the little red-headed suit, or period piece, because he often did period pieces with costume details. And he's obviously got two sisters on the hook, twins, who are both really not looking super happy. They know that they're under scrutiny. They know that they probably both would like to be the choice, or maybe neither would like to be the choice. That's the thing about his work. You don't get the full story, because you don't know what he's thinking unless he wrote a lot of notes about the piece. But this is just a beautiful, certainly rug. It's not a carpet, it's a rug underneath them, and it really anchors the piece. With these early covers, he would be aware that they were printing in limited color. So certainly red and green. Brown was probably a mix of red and green, but I would be surprised if there was more than 3 colors going on in a print like this, right? Probably red, green, yellow, and not a lot of mixing. Now, this one is a cute one. This one is called Tea Time, and this is the other one with the similar rug. So let me pull up on my phone. I have the story of that one, which I think was so. Here it is, Tea Time. So I'll hold this up for you while I read this. I found this information on a site called artfixdaily.com, artfixdaily.com, and it's called Norman Rockwell Tea Time 1927, the Norton Museum of Art. I forgot I was going to check where the Norton Museum of Art is. Just if you can see, you probably can't see on my phone, but the painting is just in the middle of a board with nothing around it, and that's how these covers would be done. So let me hold this up for you one more time, and I'll tell you a little bit about the story of this one. This is 1927. I'm sorry, 1927. Before a cozy hearth, an elderly couple sits in profile, backlit in warm yellows and oranges by an unseen flame. The woman, nestled in her patterned easy chair at the right, smiles down at her cup and saucer, which she holds daintily in her hands, while a black and white cat slumbers comfortably on her lap. Opposite her, the man wearing a long coat, cravat, and plaid trousers appears to speak cheerfully as he examines his cup through his spectacles, perched squarely on the end of his bulbous nose. He, evidently the owner of the tall silk hat, gloves, and umbrella, carefully discarded at his feet, is a visitor to this Victorian domicile. He has pulled his wooden chair up close to his companion as they enjoy tea time together. The porcelain birds and framed silhouettes face each other on the mantel above, echoing the couple's tete-a-tete below. The composition of the painting emphasizes the intimacy of the scene. And then he goes into detail. West Palm Beach, Florida. Thanks, Liz. Awesome. So that's where this original painting is, in West Palm Beach, Florida, the Norton. Thank you. But this is such a nice example of a hooked rug in a painting, but it's also just a beautiful example of, I love the way the author of this article mentions the sort of intimacy of the scene, because that is the big trademark of all Rockwell paintings, right? There is a closeness, there's an informality. You rarely get people behaving formally in his paintings. You get this kind of thing. And isn't it funny, this being in the 20s, an older couple, obviously, I don't know if it's a romance, but it's certainly a companionable relationship between two much older people, that he himself, many decades later, would have the same situation with Molly Punderson in his 90s. I mean, it's a bit of funny foreshadowing in a strange way. So that is Tea Time and Twins. Now let's look at another one. This is such a funny one. You might recognize this because it's been done on so many jigsaw puzzles. I'm not even looking at the time. So if you need to leave, no problem. You know, the whole video will be up later. This one was called The Game, but it came out in, let me see if I wrote it down. The Game came out April 3rd, 1943. This was an April Fool's Day cover. And there is another green scrolly hooked rug under here. And I have a second painting with using the same rug that's under here. Now, the interesting thing about this painting, he spent his whole life, right, illustrating. And Norman got so tired of every week people writing letters in for him that got forwarded to him from the post. Tell me when I'm back. Am I still frozen?
You're still frozen, yes.
Not too good. Am I back? Okay, great. Super. So I don't know if you caught, starting in the 1920s. Good. Let me know if I freeze again. I'll try to pay attention. Thanks, Heather. That was fast. So he started doing an April Fool cover every first week of April, just to tease people. And he would put like 100 mistakes in, things that made absolutely no sense. And that's why these make great, it's like she's holding a wrench while they're playing checkers. There's a crazy amount. That's why these make great jigsaw puzzles. But this is the one of the April ones that has the hooked rug on it. So that's the one that I pulled. But if you do a search for his April covers, he does an April Fool's one every April. And it's just to tease people and wind them up, which I thought was kind of funny. Now, the other rug that has, the other painting of his that has that same rug is a quite sad one. So I'm going to have to paraphrase, or I'm going to end up crying because it's a really sad one. This story I got off a Facebook page. I belong to like all the Facebook Norman Rockwell pages because they sometimes post really interesting stories. This one is about this painting called The Babysitter. So let me show you The Babysitter. And let me show you both these rugs together because I think it's the same rug. Right? I mean, how can it not be? So we move from The Game, the April Fool's cover, to The Babysitter. And the original title was Babysitter with Screaming Infant. And then the title became just The Babysitter. Now, this is the story behind this one. So I'll read it to you. I got this from the Facebook page, one of the Norman Rockwell Facebook pages. I think it's from the Norman Rockwell Museum. That's a great page to belong to because you know they're not going to send you any garbage. They're going to send you really interesting, meaningful stories. So the story of The Babysitter, this painting spent 30 years in the hallways of the Elihu Taft Elementary School in Burlington, Vermont, which is where he would have lived in Arlington, right? And it was briefly left in the boiler room before being turned over to a bank for safekeeping. Far from being controversial, it was all but forgotten. Then the canvas, a 50-year-old Norman Rockwell original, was appraised for $300,000. To the Burlington School Board, looking for cash to pay for current programs, they looked at it as a windfall, and they talked about selling it. And that's when they learned the true value of the 25 by 30-inch painting entitled The Babysitter. To the men and women who are sixth graders or who were sixth graders at Taft Elementary School in 1946, the picture represents something money can't buy. I'm going to paraphrase this because it's long. A memory of the red-haired girl in the painting whose hair is being yanked by a truly unruly infant reminds them of their friend Alice Pooley, who died of leukemia in 1947. So she was quite young when she died, a year after they got this painting, or no, before they got this painting, sorry, after it was painted. Rockwell himself gave the class the picture as a way of commemorating this girl. Now, this isn't the model. I'll tell you how this happened. And this is the reason this article was written, because the people who were in the class of 46, 47 who knew Allison were horrified that this painting was going to be sold. So this is what happened. And then we'll get back to the school board's feeling. The dilemma is okay. So this is what happened. The 32 members of Taft's sixth grade met Norman Rockwell then 52 years old in 1946, a day that none of them would ever forget. World War II had ended the year before with the end of gasoline rationing, so life was becoming sort of normal again. Piling into the school bus, the class set off on an adventure that would cover hundreds of miles. Imagine, just listen to this, and imagine anybody doing this nowadays with a middle school. They visited a rabbit farm in Middlebury College, and Middlebury College. So a rabbit farm, then Middlebury College, then Rokeby, which was a stop on the Underground Railroad where they helped escaped slaves get into Canada. They met the poet called William Hard. And at one point, the bus got stuck in the mud and had to be pulled out by a farmer and his tractor. And the trip's highlight was recalling, this is Lorna Brown, one of the students then, who's 61 at the time of this article. Her highlight of the day was visiting Norman Rockwell at his studio in Arlington, about 100 miles south. The famous illustrator gave every student an autograph in some of his homegrown apples. He also showed them step by step how he created his celebrated Saturday Evening Post covers. Allison, the girl who, this is not her in the painting, but she was on this trip, and she was already sick, and nobody obviously knew quite how sick she was. Her not feeling well and her dying of leukemia were obviously two different things at this point, but her classmates remember her. I'm not going to read it because it's a total choke up, as being typical happy, sweet girl, young. And with the trip in their minds, when they realized how sick Allison was, the classmates got in touch with Norman, and they said, because she died the next year, they said, in memory of this girl, because she was on the trip and she met him too, could you send us anything, like a picture, a photo, anything? And he ended up sending a painting, and it was this painting. And he sent it to the school where it hung for years, right? And then it got into the janitor's closet and was forgotten, and they forgot completely about it, and they didn't realize how much it was worth. So for the kids in the 1940s, him having, and by the way, he put, where is it? The safety pin. Oh, shoot. Oh, it's right here. It's hard to see in this printout. You can see it in the books. I listed a lot of Norman Rockwell books on the page of this video on YouTube, in case you're interested, including the book I was working out of. But this is a real safety pin he clipped through the canvas as like a little joke. But he sent them this painting as a reaction because he felt so badly about the classmate passing away so young. And he remembered her from the day of the field trip and the apples and all that. And so I don't know what the resolution is of this story, but the school obviously felt, and I don't know how old the story is. I didn't want to get into a whole side story, but it's too late, right? The school obviously didn't feel comfortable keeping a painting that was worth $300,000 or keeping it secure. So it was a bit of a gridlock. I'll maybe read the end of the story later, and maybe I'll add it. We'll see how it goes with Thanksgiving in time. Oh, okay. The Save the Babysitter campaign began formally on October 25th. Not sure what year this is. Reception by the Chittenden Bank, blah, blah, blah. So far, about 25,000 of the 300,000 has been pledged, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, plans were afoot to move the Babysitter out of the bank. Okay, so it's being held at the bank, to the University of Vermont's Fleming Museum a mile away, where it will be displayed with Allison Pooley's story. So that, I guess that's the end of the story. That's quite nice. But I thought that was a total choker upper. So in this picture, long-winded, but yeah, he's used the same rug twice, completely different. This one ends up being commemorative of Allison Poole, who dies of leukemia in elementary school, and this one being the cover of a April Fool's magazine. So, all right, let's see what else we've got. There's some other beauties here. I have a couple more for sure. Oh, did I drop a picture? Did I drop a page? No, I didn't. So let's look at this one. This one's really sweet too. This is another early cover. It's called The Doctor and Doll. And this is 1929. So again, this would have been painted in silhouette. It's hard to see this one because it's another dark green. It could be one of the ones that we've already seen, but it looks like, if you can see, there looks like there's a medallion in the center of it. So it's real hard to tell what that rug actually looked like. I like how it's a bit crumpled up under her foot too. This is a really sweet one. I found something really sweet written about this. Let me see if I can find it. Um, okay, so that was, I keep all these little windows open so I can look with you. Doctor and Doll, 1929. And I found this on prints.com, right? You can buy Norman Rockwell prints anywhere, including the Norman Rockwell Museum, which is probably the best place to get them. This little excerpt that I found was written by Neil Harris for a book called Neil Harris, for a book called Norman Rockwell, Pictures for the American People, published in 1999. That might be one that I listed on today if you're interested in a Rockwell book for yourself or as a gift. He writes about this one, the Doctor and Doll. The doctor who applies his stethoscope to the young girl's doll is attempting to acknowledge her world of enchantment. The expression on his face is serious and concerned, as it might be if he were examining the girl herself. Such a willingness to place professional expertise at the feet of childhood magic serves to remind us again of things we have forgotten. Secret kingdoms inhabited by imaginary beings whose needs seemed as real as those of the people around us. Rockwell's physician may appear to take the doll's health seriously as an effort to gain the child's confidence and trust, but his act of sympathy is also one of grace, accepting the patient's needs with serenity. So that's the kind of beautiful writing that you'll find in this magazine about Rockwell. You know, there's so many books where people talk about each painting in a sensitive and beautiful way like that to give you a real insight into what's going on here. You know, I'm looking at it and looking at the hooked rug, but then I'm thinking of the story of it and saying, yeah, all of that really is happening in this painting. So beautiful. This is another beautiful one. Less poignant. That was quite poignant too. They all become poignant when you read something like that. That's the most poignant. I hope I can get through that one. Let's see. Doctor and Doll. Okay, this. Yep. Oh, wait a minute. Yep. So this one is called Practice from 1950. And this is a really over-the-top hooked rug in this one. So this is after the Arlington thing. There would have been the Berkshires by now. So this is a rug that hopefully survived, that wasn't burnt in the prop house, because this is a large and really beautiful rug. This is a way more colorful picture than it's showing up to. It's very, very bright. But what I love about this picture is this is one of the many articles you can find online where you can find the person grown up too. So this is the model that Rockwell used for this painting. And he would have had everything staged like this in his studio, the rug with the chair on it, the boy with the trumpet, and this is the boy with the trumpet, as a much older man. And I found this article in the New York Post, right, the New York Post website, Meet the Real People Behind These Famous Norman Rockwell Paintings, August 8th, 2020, so not that long ago. This is Thomas Paquin that posed for trumpet practice. It was called Trumpet Practice in 1950 when it came out. Stephen Haggerty had spent his summers in Arlington, Vermont since he was 3 years old. In 1961, working on a farm, I don't know why it says Stephen Haggerty because the picture says Thomas Paquin, working on a farm, playing bingo at dance socials and hearing stories about artist Norman Rockwell. It seemed that nearly every parent, every local farmer, every business owner Haggerty encountered in Arlington, okay, so this is the person writing the article, had posed for the famed illustrator who lived there with his wife and 3 sons between 1938 and 1953. Haggerty, an editor and author who writes under the name of S.T. Haggerty, also blah, blah, blah. So Haggerty ends up writing this book, this should be on Amazon too, called Call Me Norman. And it's a book about the models that were in the early paintings. So this could have been Arlington going up to 1953. I'm just doing chronology and timeline in my head. This could have still been Arlington. That might have been one of the rugs that went up with the fire. It is what it is. It was not a good day for anybody, I guess, but that's called Trumpet Practice. Let me see. Let me stay organized here because I have at least one more to show you. I showed you the young Norman. I just love this one of him. I love all of him. This one is really nice. This has a rug in it too. It's real hard to see this one. You'll have to pull this one up on the internet because this one is a bit hard to see. You know, he did so many because he was so patriotic. Remember the 4 freedoms that he did? Those are in the Norman Rockwell Museum. Abe Lincoln standing up at the trial. That's freedom of speech. And then freedom from want, freedom from fear, and freedom of religion. So he did a lot of patriotic work. Those were the 4 propaganda posters he did for World War II. But he did a lot. He was super patriotic, and he did a lot of Boy Scout stuff and then of war stuff, World War I, World War II. And this is one of them. So this one is called The Armchair General. And he's got a beautiful yellow and floral hooked rug under the general's feet. This is a more sort of poignant one than it appears. I'm reading this from the Saturday Evening Post page, right? SaturdayEveningPost.com, September 24th, 2014. It's an article called "The War at Home." Rockwell's portrait of a domestic dad in Armchair General portrays both the older generation's passionate desire to stay current with the war news and its frustrating isolation from the action overseas. Rockwell's Armchair General is a reliable reflection of which many parents, I'm paraphrasing, spent their evenings in World War II, waiting for the latest reports on the fates of their sons. April 29th, 1944, the post cover shows a worried patriarch who tunes into a radio to chart the war's maneuvers. More important, he's attempting to deduce his 3 sons' whereabouts and safety. Rockwell's careful deployment of mapping and research props gives the illustration a sense of narrative history. It's clear this activity occurred nightly. Well-penciled maps flag the sons' positions next to their military portraits. In homes across the country, parental war anxiety was the norm. Rockwell's composition is both heartwarming and sad. The patriotic dad is surrounded by a flurry of homemade research and comforted by a pair of cats. He's doing all he can to stay current, but essentially he is powerless. So this, like so many of his patriotic scenes, it looks like it's making sort of fun of a man who is trying to be real proactive about keeping track of what's going in his old age. But then when you take a closer look, you see he's tracking 3 different people's progress through the war. And then these little touches that you wouldn't necessarily notice without help. The 2 cats, flanking his feet like little bookends, keeping his spirits up, and his pins on the wall. I mean, these are just also beautiful. Everybody looks at art for different things, right? I mean, like I was looking through the book and looking for art that had hooked rugs in it. And that's such a small thing. But there's so many other things to say in all of these. So I hope that if you're interested in Norman Rockwell, you look at some of the books at the end of this. It's so easy to get choked up because they are so beautiful. I just want to show you a couple more things before I leave because I know it's getting super late. I showed this book is really nice. This is the one I have. This isn't the one I got the pictures out of, though. I posted quite a few, and there's at least 2 different Rockwell calendars for 2021 if you're interested in those. I just wanted to show you a couple more. This is like a more of a Christmas holiday one. This is called Family Homecoming. And this one is just so great for so many reasons. It's great to show on a holiday like today because in it you've got Norman Rockwell. You've got his wife, Mary. This is Jarvis, the oldest son. This is, I think that's Tom. And Peter is, where's Peter? Here, way over here. And then you've got his very good friend in real life, Grandma Moses. And these are all family members and neighbors who he drew and he was close to. And there he is, of course, with his pipe. This is one of the really beautiful pictures that he did that had to do with the holidays and people coming together. He did this one too, which was one of his sort of stranger Thanksgiving covers. And it was in 1951. So the war ends in 1945. So this has nothing to do with the war. But this cover really talks about, I'm going to describe it first. It really talks about change and how post-war culture was something like everything was changing so quickly. Families were getting skewered. There were a lot of orphans. There were a lot of people on the move. And the cover that I'm going to show you shows a grandmother and her son with baggage sitting at a diner in what is clearly a city because you'll see out the window, he painted a cityscape. And they are obviously en route from something to something, but the story is not clear at all. The story is that for some reason, the grandmother and grandson are packed into this busy city diner and they are very out of place. So you'll have to see. I remember when I used to do my tours, I would count how many people are actually in this picture represented because you've got shoulders and handbags, and the impression is meant to give you the feeling that, there's a lot of people hustling and bustling, and they have to share the table with a couple of young boys who are really curious about their saying grace. So this is very, very different than his other Thanksgiving covers. This is a Thanksgiving cover. And just as a side note, out that window, that gray that you're seeing where the word restaurant ends, is considered his technically most difficult piece of painting that he ever did. It is a black and white cityscape in abstraction. And it is technically super, super difficult. You'll have to see it closer up or pull it up to see how difficult it was. The reason he did this was because he's bored at this point in his career. He doesn't want to do Saturday Evening Post subjects anymore. He wants to do stuff like this, stuff that tells a story that's a bit harder to take, sadder. But this is one of his, I've got to say, his most unusual cover for Thanksgiving. So that's one that's worth looking at because we are having a fairly unusual year this year. So for us, things are not quite the same as they maybe have been in the past. So maybe it's nice to end on that cover because he did so many beautiful covers. But he did a lot that were quite serious too. And that certainly is his most serious. I just thought of one if I can find it. Yeah, let me show you this one real quick. I can't end on that one because it's a little bit sad. But let's end on this one. It's a bit inappropriate, but it's one of his early ones, 1921. It's called The Pilgrim's Progress. This is a bit inappropriate. So again, I'm not communicating any personal feelings, thoughts, opinions. I'm just showing you a Norman Rockwell picture that shows a little pilgrim boy running away and obviously being shot by Native American people in the hat. Arrows flying by him, but it's meant to be funny. And I want to emphasize this is 1921, but it is a beautiful painting, and I think it is a bit funny. I don't want to end on the grandma in the city diner because it's a bit too sad for me. But this is called The Pilgrim's Progress, one of his really early ones. This little boy obviously stole a turkey, and he's running away, and there's a little bit of a kickback with him stealing the turkey, as you can see. So I guess that is not one that they would display in many museums at this point. But hey, you want to say Happy Thanksgiving before I cut your hair later? She doesn't have pants on, so sit down. Mom was choked up looking at all these beautiful Norman Rockwell pictures. You want to say thanks? You said Happy Thanksgiving. We're going to give her a little haircut because she's looking like Hans Christian Andersen's The Little Match Girl a little bit. We're going to do a little more of a bob with a shaped thing. Mama's going to see how she does doing that. Mostly because we keep getting knots and we don't like brushing our hair. So we might as well deal with that by just cutting it a little bit.
I didn't know you were doing coffee time.
I'm doing coffee time. So I'm at the end of coffee time. It was an extra long extended dance mix night version.
Yeah, it was almost an hour.
Indeed, it was almost an hour. So should we say bye to all of our buddies and say Happy Thanksgiving? We hope you have a wonderful day. I hope looking at some Norman Rockwell rugs and paintings set you up for some festivity. And even if you're not having festivity, have some good thoughts, have some happy thoughts. Look at things like these pictures that can make you happy. They're on the internet. You can check them all out. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Wishing you and yours the very best wherever you are, whatever you're doing. You aren't alone. We at least had this time together, and I will see you tomorrow night at cocktail time for our Molly Naitobi 50 States Bingo Blowout. Happy Thanksgiving.
Bye. Happy Thanksgiving.